If I were to use the words four-cylinder Mustang, what would be your first thought? Square, somewhat maybe ugly car, depending on your viewpoint of it, from the late 80s, early 90s, with a dinky little four-cylinder engine, not very fast, and definitely not a 5.0 V8, right? But what if I told you that has all changed? And now you can get a four-cylinder Ford Mustang with over 300 horsepower. Well, today I'm going to show you one. This is a 2020 Ford Mustang Ecoboost. That's right, this is a 2020 Ford Mustang Ecoboost, a four-cylinder. And although it doesn't have the 5-liter V8, or even better, a 5.2 for a GT350 or GT500, this thing is actually a pretty neat vehicle. So we're going to check it out today. Full walk around inside and outside tour of this car. We're going to talk about the specs, the powertrain, all of it, and take it for a test drive and see just how this thing performs, because I'm a car lover and I love a V8 Mustang, but something about a four-cylinder that can put out this kind of power that this one does is actually pretty compelling. So let's check this thing out. There goes a 5.0. Before we get started, huge shout out, huge thanks to Hepperly Auto Sales in Lenoir City, Tennessee for lending me this vehicle to review today. We've done business with these folks for several years. They've got a great selection of cars, trucks, SUVs, and that Ecoboost Mustang across 3 dealerships, soon to be 4 here in East Tennessee. So go check them out in the description box below. There's a pretty red truck and that Challenger. All right, back to the Ecoboost. So let's start with the exterior. Now this is the same exterior as all your other Mustangs until you step up to things like the GT500, of course. Same look, you can definitely tell this is a current generation Mustang. It's very nice looking. Here we have our headlights that have the 3-part daytime running lamp in here, LED of course. I do like the nice ring around this projector headlight. Down here further down the bumper we do have our LED turn signal as well. Coming across you do just have a pretty basic, you know, matte black plastic grille with the Pony logo in the center. Obviously your higher up Mustangs, your performance pack and whatnot, gonna have a different logo over here. It's gonna look a little bit cooler, but it's still a pretty good looking car. It's got this nice black lit spoiler down here. Obviously higher models, especially the performance, that's gonna stick out a little further and look even cooler. Up here on the hood you do have 2 functional heat extractor vents as well, so that's pretty neat. You know, usually on your lower end cars, your lesser performance stuff like this is fake, it's just for looks, but those are actually functional heat extractor vents, which very nice. Here we do have the factory 5-spoke 17-inch wheels. These are 235 tires. Coming down here, there is no badge on the side because it is an Ecoboost car. Now the high performance package, if you were to get it, would have a badge denoting that it is a high performance 2.3 liter, but this is just the base, it doesn't have it. Continue walking on the side, it still has the nice lines of the current Mustang. You can see what they've done with the fenders, they make them kind of flat here. This has fastback design, I do like that. The spoiler is not factory, this is an aftermarket faux carbon fiber spoiler, but yeah, whoever put it on had a little bit of taste, I guess. And the exhaust definitely is not stock. Whoever had this before definitely modified it, so it's got some sound. Here we have our 3-part brake lights here, and here on the left side we're showcasing the sequential nature of these turn signals. Very cool thing the Mustang's been doing for several years now, and a few generations of the Mustang, and I think this is the coolest thing. I hope they never do away with it. Down here on the bumper you do have a very low mounted single reverse light. Some people like to call it an afterthought. I just think they probably wanted to do it for styling. And of course you have your Pony logo right here in the center, and your backup camera right above that. Here, this is definitely not a factory part, at least it doesn't appear that way. It looks like somebody did a modification. But there's your gas door with your capless fuel filler system as well. On the doors you do have your side view mirrors, which do have the paint matched mirror caps. Although I think these mirrors are a little bit small, and I'm not the only one on the internet to complain about this. These are pretty small. It is nice. It does have these blind spot mirrors up in the corner, although they are also very small too. Not unusable, but they could probably be bigger. But of course then they may take away from aerodynamics or even styling, because it is a very good looking car with these mirrors on it. Before we climb on in the interior, here's the key. Just like with the Fusion I just read, this is your typical Ford key. This one does not have a remote starter on it, however, but it does have your lock, your unlock, and your trunk release button right here to open that trunk up. Getting in the car, here we have a pad on the door handle, just like a lot of other cars, Toyota, Ford. With the car unlocked, if you just tap this with the remote control on you, it will lock the car. Sensor on the back of the handle, same thing, if the remote's with you, sensor on the back, unlocks, and you can open it and get in. Here we can see our interior door cards. They're definitely not the ugliest thing in the world. Obviously they could be, you know, higher quality and more luxurious, but this is a base model EcoBoost Mustang, so you have to lower your expectations for that, which is, you know, not something I mind. It keeps costs down, and this car is about fun driving. It's not necessarily about, you know, all the greatest materials, but it's still nice for what it is. You do have a couple different textures going on here, about 3 different materials going on here, all in black. You do have some white contrast stitching, just a little bit, very subtle, and you have a nice chrome colored door pull, as well as your door release, and your buttons in front of that for your lock and unlock are outlined in chrome as well. All right, starting on the dashboard here is your Mustang steering wheel. This is the wheel that's being used in pretty much all the Mustangs, but it's a really good looking steering wheel, I think. Kind of round here for my taste, but you know, whatever. You do have your nice Pony logo in the center. Here is your controls for your radio, your volume, your channels and whatnot, or you can mute it. Cruise control down here, nice to have. Here's your phone controls, and here are the controls for your center screen in your gauge cluster. We'll get to that in a second. On the steering wheel you do have up and down shifting paddles, so you can shift the 10-speed automatic manually, although I've heard it's not all that great. We're going to try to figure out if it is or not. Here are your typical wiper stock here and signal stock here, pretty much using a lot of Ford models. Definitely an interesting shape, and there's your intermittent wiper control kind of tucked away inside of that. That's kind of neat. All right, here we have our tachometer, and I like how they kind of write out revolutions per minute instead of RPM. Just kind of gives it a neat touch, I think. With your looks like about 6,500 red line, so you can give it some revs there. On this side is your speedometer, and once again, instead of saying miles per hour or anything like that, this is ground speed right here, which is, I get a kind of neat touch. It's you know, it's a little bit of fun to it if you think about it. It takes away some of the boring of a car. Of course, you got your fuel gauge down here and your temp gauge on the other side. Here's our center screen, and we're going to start in the main menu for now, starting out with gauge mode, which is kind of neat. So if you click over into gauge mode, you get a bunch of different readouts, just, you know, read out numerically. Your air fuel ratio, your boost and vacuum numbers, cylinder head temp, inlet air temperature, engine oil pressure, that kind of thing, trans oil temp, voltage, distance to empty. You get a digital speedometer in there as well that you can change between miles per hour and kilometers per hour. Tire pressure monitors, and back to there. Now if we click over to the right again, now you get some actual digital analog style gauges reading out all your figures, which is kind of cool. So here's your air fuel ratio. You can see it in real time there. Click down, here's our vacuum boost. So if we get some revs, you can see you know, the needle moves accordingly. Cylinder head temp right out there. Here's your engine oil temp, kind of cool. Trans oil, voltage, air fuel, that kind of thing. So really cool to actually be able to get a analog style digital readout there in the center of all these things. I'm going to go ahead and put that into vacuum boost. I'm going to definitely have fun viewing that a little bit later. If we go back from gauge detail, or from gauge mode, I should say, go down here, you have your all your trip meters, that kind of thing. In that menu, track apps. So status screen, let's see what that gives. Okay, it's just telling us if we're in comfort. Steering is in comfort mode, comfort, normal, sport, that kind of thing. Let's go ahead and get out of that. accelerometer. Let's see what that looks like. So here we go. So here's your accelerometer. So use your G-forces for acceleration, braking, and your lateral turning G-forces. Kind of cool there. Acceleration timer, I kind of like that. So we may see how good that is, because this thing does have a claim of 0 to 60 time, which I'll talk about here in a little bit. And it looks like we may be able to get a read on that. That's really cool. Automatic start, countdown start. That's okay. This is cool. So definitely think that's going to be fun to see. Brake performance. Go into that, you can see your 60 to 0 time. So that's even cooler. Line lock. So apparently, don't tell me this thing comes with line lock now. I won't be trying that. I'm not on a track. But line lock, of course, for those who don't know, is a feature that will hold the front wheel brakes, so to allow you to initiate a launch, to allow you to do a burnout, to warm up the tires if you're going to be drag racing. We're not going to be using that though. Lap timer, you have a lap timer in this thing. And back up there, let's back up again. Driver's assist, you get all the other stuff. Auto engine off, we don't like that. No one likes that. You get a few different settings. Your display setup, you can change a few options there. Go up here to your vehicle settings and your intelligent access, your lighting, your locks, all that good stuff. Remote start, which this car actually does not have, but if it did have it, you can tell it what to do with the climate control. Now I'm assuming this car doesn't have it because the key doesn't have it. However, all the settings are sitting here in front of me, so it may or may not have it. Maybe it's just a different key, I don't know. But you can set up your climate control. You can set how long it runs for. Definitely cool to see. Windows, you can open them remotely, I guess. Wipers, and back up to here. Back up, and that's the end of that menu. All right, coming over to our center stack on the dashboard. Now here you do have some faux carbon fiber. It's definitely not real, and you can tell it's not real, although from a distance it does have a neat look. You're not going to get real carbon fiber in a base Ecoboost Mustang. Sorry, not going to happen. If we move down, we have a very, very small center infotainment screen, if you can even call it infotainment. This does run Ford Sync system, but I imagine it's probably a pretty basic system. And we can probably try to turn some things on here. Some power. Turn that down. There we go. Click stuff off the screen. Oh, I don't think it's a touch screen. See? Still learning things. Anyway. You get your media here. You get your radio. You get your phone. It doesn't look like there's any kind of navigation, but, I mean, you're not going to get a lot in here. Now, if we put it into reverse, you're going to have a fairly small backup camera. Okay, very small. This is my hand. It covers the whole thing effortlessly. So very small backup camera, not unusable, and it's actually pretty clear. If we get in closer, you can see it's actually not bad. If I touch here, see, I'm only assuming that it's a zoom function, but I don't think it is. No, it's not. Look here, right here. This is not a touchscreen. It's not a touchscreen. So here's your controls for it. Anyhow, very small. Now you do have guidelines. You have trajectory lines for when you turn your steering wheel. So it's kind of nice, but it's very, very small if you're used to, you know, bigger screens. Down here, once again, this is your controls for it. So let's put this thing in park so we can see everything else. Here's your controls for it. It's not a touchscreen, so here's all your controls. You got your play, pause, your volume, up and down, you know, that kind of thing down here. That's actually your mute button. Here's your volume up and down knob, as well as your power button. And here is your tuning knob. Everything is controlled with buttons and knobs. There is no touchscreen in this car. Moving down, here is your climate control. Now this is a single zone climate control, nothing fancy. It's a base model EcoBoost. So you got your fan speed right here. You got some neat little lights. Just, you know, as you turn it up, you can see they increase and decrease. And you got your temperature control right here. Down here, your engine start-stop button. It's nice aluminum looking deal here. I do really like this. I like the placement. I like the way it looks. It's definitely adds to the sporty look of the sports car. Hazards, traction control, and this last button over here, this button is to adjust your steering wheel feel. So you can go between comfort mode, normal, or sport. So we may see how that feels out on the road. That'd be kind of cool to try out. Down from that, you can see we do have a USB type A port, as well as your 12-volt round outlet as well. So you can charge a few devices in this car. Here we do have the automatic shift selector. Now this car is optioned with the 10-speed automatic transmission. You could also have optioned this, and I guess you still can, with a 6-speed manual to add a little bit more fun and, you know, a little bit more control. You know, 10 gears could be a lot for some people where the car's almost always shifting. Nice to know that they offer both transmissions for people's preferences. Very nice. Moving back, you do have 2 cup holders outlined in chrome. That's very nice to see. And a park brake lever. How nice is that? So you can use a lever instead of a stupid electronic button for your park brake. Moving back, here's our center console storage. Not the biggest thing in the world, but it's of ample size. You do have a 12-volt round outlet in here and a USB type A port. So a little bit of connectivity. Now here are the cloth bucket seats that come in the base model EcoBoost Mustang, the non-performance package. Now they're not leather, they're cloth, but they still look pretty nice. They have a little bit of white contrast stitching in them, and you can see the Mustang logo embossed into the cloth, which is a nice touch to it, I think. Now here you do have fully manually adjustable seats. There is no power in here. Once again, base model Mustang, trying to keep costs low. It's not a GT, it's not a V8. And like most Mustangs, it does have rear seats, although even children might have a bit of a time fitting back here. It looks like it could probably fit a sizable person as far as the butt and back is concerned. Headroom might be a problem. Legroom, you'd have to have no legs, pretty much. No legs back here. Sorry, folks. Definitely not a place for adults and barely a place for kids. You do have a latch on the back of the seat, however, so if people are sitting back here, they can pull it to get out. Although I don't know how they're going to do that without legs. All right, to access the trunk, if we come down here above the license plate, there is a button that has an electronic release. We hit that button and we can pull the trunk open. Now, no, I didn't happen to get the specs on the size of the cargo area, but it's okay. It's pretty sizable, and you can fold the rear seats down to create more space, which is cargo storage is pretty much all those are good for anyway, so why not fold them down, maximize your storage back here. If we come underneath here, underneath the floor, I don't see a spare. It looks like it was made to maybe accept a spare, but all I'm seeing back here is a tire refill kit. So possibly an option, I'm sure. Not much else to say about the trunk. We're going to close that down, and let's go talk about the powertrain. All right, and now to the part that everybody probably wonders about concerning the EcoBoost Mustang, and that is the engine and transmission. This again is the base model EcoBoost Mustang. This is a 2.3 liter turbocharged 4-cylinder. Remember, EcoBoost is Ford speak for turbocharged. The same engine as in the recently discontinued, as of 2020, Focus RS. Same engine. This produces 310 horsepower in its base configuration. Now, unfortunately, and for some unknown reason, at least to me anyways, this is less power than it made in the lighter Focus RS. In the Focus RS, this engine was tuned to make 350 horsepower. So why they detuned it, why it has less power, I'm not sure, but 310 horsepower, 350 foot-pound of torque. This is mated, again, to either your choice of a 10-speed auto as equipped here or a 6-speed manual transmission. 0 to 60 figures come in at 5.1 to 5.5 seconds. So I'm assuming that means with the automatic, which provides faster shifts, you know, no human control, you get in the 5.1, with the manual 5.5. Still a fairly quick car for a 4-cylinder. Fuel economy ratings for your base EcoBoost: 21 miles per gallon city, 32 on the highway. Not the most fuel efficient vehicle in town. I mean, our V6 Highlander gets like 2 more than that actually on average, but still, you know, for a sports car, not terrible. Now you can tell that this is a performance engine. It does generate some heat, and it's a good thing we have the heat extractors, because when I opened it, this prop rod was quite hot. I guess one good advantage to this motor is if you're one for working on your own cars, there is a ton of room to work on this engine should you choose to do so. Now, I'm pretty sure that that is not factory. Like I said, the previous owner of this vehicle probably did some modification. I'll say a cold air intake was one of those, as well as the exhaust. So it may make just a little bit more power. I'm not sure if it's tuned or not. It may make a little bit more than 310, but I'm guessing probably not a whole lot more. All right, before we go drive this thing, I want to talk about something else you could have optioned with this car. Now, this, once again, I've said it a few times, is your base level EcoBoost Mustang. And excuse the phone, I have a hard time remembering things, so just bear bear with me, all right? Sometimes I need the phone. Anyway, you could have also gotten this with the performance package. Now, back in 2020, that package would cost you an additional $5,000. Not sure how much more it costs now, but I'd say it's probably not much more, although the market's crazy, so maybe. This would give you some upgraded wheels, nicer than this, maybe a little bit bigger. This has your thicker sidewall for a nicer ride quality. You're gonna get some sportier, lower profile tires. I think either 18s or 19s are gonna come with this. You also get larger brakes, 4-piston calipers for better stopping power, obviously, because it's gonna be a more sporty, fast car. You get stiffer suspension, thicker anti-roll bars, so of course it's gonna handle better, it's gonna be better in the corners. You do get active exhaust in the back, so instead of the dual tip that we saw back there, one on each side, you do get quad tip exhaust. You also get a limited slip diff with 355 gears. You also are going to get a strut tower brace that runs from one side to the other to once again add more stiffness, because you're going to be cornering it. It's going to be performance. You're going to need the stiffness. You do get a power bump up to about 332 horsepower above the 310, so a small power bump, but a power bump nonetheless, and a decreased 0 to 60 time of 4.9 seconds with the automatic transmission, and a quarter-mile time of 13.4. Not exactly drastic changes, but enough to make it just a little bit more fun than it already should be. There was also an additional handling package. I wasn't able to figure out what that includes, for an additional $2,000 to make it just that much more sporty handling. Anyway, I think it's about time we take this thing for a spin and see what it's like to drive, because I've been interested to do this. Let's do it. All right, so let's start this thing out with an acceleration timer, and this thing has an acceleration timer on it. So let's see what that does. We'll do an automatic start, and okay, and go. Now it's got an 8.8 to 60, but it's also being kind of careful. It's still pretty quick. See how this thing handles as well while we're at it. We'll try that 0 to 60 again. Now this thing does not have the handling performance package or anything like that, so you can tell it's pretty good around the corners. I mean, it's not terrible, but you can definitely feel a little bit of body roll. But still nothing to complain about. It's still a nice, fun car to drive, and with whatever that person before did to the exhaust, it definitely has an interesting sound to it, and sounds kind of mean too, doesn't it? So let's get up here. There should be some better curves up here. We can see how it feels. I'm going to put the steering wheel in sport feel. There we go. Watch out for the little doggy. It gets a little bit stiffer. You have to get a little bit more feedback from the electronic power steering. You can hear the blow-off valve on the turbo too. You can hear that going. We'll get back on the highway, we'll do a true run. Actually, it's not bad at all. And these seats that we're in, they are bolstered. They are, you know, somewhat sport bucket seats, but oh, that wasn't bad at all. They are actually pretty comfortable, and they hold you in place well enough for, you know, a base car. This is, you know, obviously nowhere near the highest package. It's a base, but it's a nice base. Aside from acceleration, once again, pretty comfortable seats, but yet bolstered, and they hold you in place pretty well. Visibility out over the hood is great, and with the hoods on these modern Mustangs, it's also kind of a cool view. Kind of shapely. It's pretty aggressive view out over the hood. I do like that a lot. Great visibility out the rear window. The sides, it does have those quarter windows, so you're going to get some pretty good visibility. Not a huge blind spot. The biggest gripe for visibility that I have is going to be the side view mirrors. They are pretty small. They got a even smaller blind spot mirror in them, so you're going to have to line those up pretty perfectly in order to see everything you want to see behind you. There's really my only visibility gripe though, and it's one of my very few gripes about this car. I've really enjoyed driving this thing today. All right, gonna try the 0 to 60 again. Okay, and go. 6.6 seconds to 60 miles an hour. Slight uphill grade on the highway. Still nothing to sneeze at. I mean, it's a pretty quick car. You may very well achieve 5.5 on the right tires, on the right roadway, under the right condition. There was a little bit of small gravel there which could have affected the grip. And of course you gotta have the right tires. But that was to the floor, and 6.6 is definitely nothing to laugh at. Pretty quick car. This is definitely a fun vehicle to drive. I want to see, can I drop down into manual mode? There we go. If I could run through the downshift. Downshift. There we go. We got 4th gear, 5th, 6th, 7th. Alright, so it is okay shifting. You do have a lot of gears to shift through though. And there is probably about a half-second lag between when you pull the paddle and when it changes gears. But obviously it's not a supercar, it's not a dual clutch transmission, so you're not going to get those lightning quick shifts, especially out of, and I'll say it again, a base model EcoBoost Mustang. It's, you know, it's not meant to have all the best things, all the greatest acceleration, the fastest transmission, but it's definitely not bad. I gotta say that. Let's do one more pull here. I'm not gonna look at the 60, but I'm just gonna make a pull. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, definitely like it. I do like this car. Alright, let's get back and let's wrap this thing up. And so there you have it, folks. That is the 2020 Ford Mustang Ecoboost. Is it the fastest Mustang? No. Is it the best sounding Mustang? No. Is it a ugly square 4-cylinder slow thing from the late 80s? Also no. This is a great looking car. It's absolutely a blast to drive. It has a good amount of power for the size of the engine that's in it. You cannot complain about the power whatsoever. I mean it when I say I have greatly enjoyed my time with this car today, and I hope you guys have enjoyed coming along with me and taking a look at this car. Hope you've enjoyed this review and found it informative. And if you've thought about this, if you've ever had this thought, I wonder if I could possibly want a 4-cylinder Mustang of all things, I hope this helps you to make that decision. This has been a great video to make. Anyways, if you all did enjoy it, you know what to do. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Follow on Facebook and Instagram at that car vlog channel, of course. Check out Hepperly Auto Sales down in the description below. Huge thanks to them for loaning me this vehicle to use today. Thanks to Connor over here for riding along and doing the camera work during the drive. These are great people. We've done business with them on several occasions. They do great business. 3 dealer locations in Lenoir City, Tennessee, as well as 2 in Maryville and 1 coming soon in North Knoxville. So make sure to check them out in the description below. Link to their website. Second vehicle they've lent me, and hopefully more to come. Thanks y'all so much for watching. You have a good one.